We are constantly being told how big the universe is, or how big just the solar system is. We seem to forget about our own little precious place in the universe. It's not that I think that space travel is useless or that we should never do it, but there are so many things about our own planet that are complete mysteries to us. Space travel will have its uses in the future, but if we were to use all the budgets for space programs to improve life here on Earth and delay the space race for 5 or even 10 years, would it make that much of a difference? Even without going into space, we can improve rockets and technology here on Earth without the needless risk of life. I don't want to convince anybody that space travel is bad. Rather, I want to talk about how the time and resources could be better spent here on Earth and why we should wait to go to space. In February 2008, Robert Ballard, professor of oceanography at the Rhode Island University and also famed ocean archaeologist, known primarily for his discoveries of the Titanic and the Bismarck, gave a shocking TED Talk in Monterey, California. In it, he brought up the despairing differences between the budgets of NASA and the budgets of NOAA, the national administration in charge of exploring, charting, and mapping the oceans. For the year 2015, Congress allotted NOAA a budget of $5.5 billion, and NASA received $17.5 billion. Almost all of what we know about the oceans, including plate tectonics, which I'm sure you remember is a pretty big deal, mankind has only just discovered in the past 50 years. 72% of our planet is underwater, and yet less than 5% of the oceans have ever been explored. Only 3 people have been to the bottom of the Challenger Deep, and that's less than the moon, which has hosted 12 people. To quote Robert Ballard, "Why are we not funding this? We have better maps of the surface of Mars than we do of our own oceans." Besides all the shocking statistics that show how alarmingly uninformed we are about our own planet, there are practical reasons behind the outrage. The reason being, with the majority of Earth being submerged, wouldn't it follow that the majority of resources we need and search for are also submerged? There are a dozen programs with the goal of mining asteroids, but would it not be vastly less expensive, less time-consuming, and just all around easier to mine these minerals from the ocean floor rather than giant rocks hurtling through space? Again, it just goes to show how uninformed we are about the planet. Are we really ready to take on a whole nother one? Understanding our oceans is directly linked to understanding climate change. The atmosphere and the ocean are locked in a delicate balance. One cannot change without it affecting the other, which brings us to one of the biggest global threats seen since the Cold War. According to every leading scientist, we are in full crisis mode, and this year alone is shaping up to be the hottest on record. Yet, we allow people to deny its existence. We don't see anybody denying the existence of the moon or Pluto, and if they did, they would be laughed at. But some of these people claiming that climate change doesn't exist are making our laws. Is that not a horrifying idea? That we can get everyone to agree on the existence of a dwarf planet that they can't even see, but we can't get them to acknowledge something very real and very dangerous happening here on our own planet. If you don't believe in climate change, let's take a look at one of our closest neighbors, the planet Venus. Venus is known as Earth's sister planet, and it is extremely similar to Earth in size, time it takes to orbit the sun, and density. In fact, scientists predict that Venus probably had oceans at one time and used to have an atmosphere close to that of Earth's. But these days, the surface temperature of Venus is a balmy 865 degrees Fahrenheit, and the atmosphere is 96% carbon dioxide, the result of a runaway greenhouse effect. You might think that global warming might just lead to a better beach day, but our fate could be far worse. With an atmosphere of 96% carbon dioxide, the atmospheric pressure is 92 times what it is today, and that would crush us under the weight of our own atmosphere. The defender of space travel here might say that through space travel we can find other worlds to live on. The largest problem with this defense is that to get to the closest habitable planet will take thousands of years, and you and your children and your children's children would never see the next Earth. But my point is more that we can't just run away from this planet and to another. This would just turn into a vicious cycle. We need to learn as a species to cohabitate with environments rather than just steamrolling over them. If not, is it really fair to inflict such poor treatment onto other worlds? We don't just treat the Earth badly here, we also treat the people who live on it even worse. According to the World Bank, 1.4 billion people live on less than 1 $1.25 a day. And according to the UNICEF, 22,000 children die a day from the effects of poverty, and they die quietly in some of the poorest villages on earth, far removed from the scrutiny and conscience of the world. Being meek and weak in life makes these dying multitudes even more invisible in death. Dying of avoidable causes that probably could have been completely wiped out with $17.5 billion. How can we morally justify spending these billions of dollars on programs that might not ever pan out when there are still people in the world who are slaves, still people in the world who cannot read, and still people in the world who do not have access to clean water? It seems to me that as a civilization, we should take care of our own before going into the unknown. Earth is not a perfect planet, but for now it's all we have. We should be making strides to preserve and cherish it throughout its entire lifetime, rather than thinking of leaving it as soon as our technology allows for it. It may seem silly, but imagine if we were to go to another inhabitable planet right now, and it had intelligent life. What would those beings think of us and our dying planet, in our treatment of fellow humans? Would those beings want to associate themselves with such a reckless and uncaring society? This world is smaller than we think, and floating through a vast, lonely vacuum of black. We are its only guardians, and so far we've done a pretty poor job. It's time that man stepped up to the plate and did what had to be done before it's too late and the last chance to save ourselves and our planet slips by.